for a cisgender person, it is just not, it is unbelievable कि यार दिमाग और शरीर sync में नहीं है. You know, I could never even imagine it. What I'm thinking, I am, you know. But what if you're not? My mind says I'm a woman and I'm in a man's body.
The key or basic emotions and the basic structure, the core of every trans person who I have observed, they all are very strong. There's a lot of integrity, solidness within their core.
Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhary. Thanks for watching Inquiry. It's been a disturbing week of hate speeches in Haridwar in Delhi and the rise of Omicron. We'll be dealing with those issues on other editions. But today, the guests on my show are a happy, hopeful antidote to end the year on. They represent the best impulse in art, the desire to entertain and transform hearts and minds. ABHISHEK Kapoor, who's the director of films like Kaipoche, Rock On, and Kedarnath, recently released a film called Chandigarh Kare Aashiqui, which is about a cisgender, heterosexual, Punjabi male bodybuilder played by Ayushmann Khurrana, who falls in love with a transgender woman played by VAANI Kapoor. Perfectly pitched for mass audiences, this emotional, entertaining, sensitive film takes on a deeply taboo subject and completely turns it on its head. In some ways, this is subversion at its best, because it shifts societal thinking without it even noticing. So what drove ABHISHEK to make this film? How did he walk the difficult line between being faithful to the experience of transgenders and yet not alienating a mainstream audience? How did Vaani, who's absolutely splendid in the film, enter the character of Maanvi? And who are the transgenders who inspired them? This is a must-watch film, and I'm delighted to have ABHISHEK and Vaani on the show today. Thank you very much for joining me on Inquiry.
Thank you for having us.
So ABHISHEK, let me start with you. You know, you've said elsewhere that it's really the core of an idea that grabs you, and that's how a film really grows for you. So, you know, to make a film on transgender was not the most, commercially safe decision. It took you 2 years to write this film. So what was the core idea that really grabbed you, you know?
This is a story, I think, whose time had come, you know, for me at least. And when I first heard it, I was like really taken aback, because there was this lady by the name of Simran Sani who met me in 2017. And she came and she narrated the story to me, and suddenly she threw in this transgender angle, you know. And I was quite taken aback, because she wanted to make a serious movie about it, but she was narrating it from the guy's point of view, and I just didn't buy into it. But I was really fascinated by the idea, and I asked her to like park it with me and let it sit with me for a while. And if it still resonates after some time, then maybe I'll get into it. But after Kedarnath, it still resonated, and you know, it was still ringing in my head. And that's when my team of writers, Supratik and Tushar, they came together, and we tried different ways to get into it. You know, and we tried politics, and we tried sports. Different arenas to set this kind of a story in. But I thought the gym was the right place, because it's all about testosterone, and you know, where it's all about being a man and building your muscles, and and also, you know, to have a Zumba class and, you know, something really beautiful and sexy in that same environment, you know, could really spark up something right there, you know.
Yeah, but you know, I for me, what really worked in the film was that you really came at it, like you said, from the male bastion, you know, which is of being a bodybuilder, gym, you know, heart of Punjab. It's a stereotype, but it works because in some ways you'd imagine that's the heart of prejudice. But it's very interesting. You didn't go into the Manvi's character has slits in her wrists, but it's something in the past, it doesn't come into the film. And you've spoken very interestingly about the way you kind of skirted around the pain, and you really wanted to deal with Manvi in a different way. So can you talk about that, you know, why you didn't foreground the pain of a transgender's life?
The thing is, normally when a film like this is made, it would come from a filmmaker from the community, you know, and then it's natural that they would talk about the pain and they would talk about the hard part. And what eventually happens is that it's an artistic expression, and it will, but it'll have so much anguish and pain in it that it's not very inviting for the people who really need to know about it and where the change has to be brought. So it just sits in that one on one track of art cinema, and it'll be very well embellished with these moments, but it's of no use. you know if you I thought that if a guy who's not from the community, and I'm touched by this very thought and the kind of what the trans community goes through and how it is marginalized and how much in the dark it is. The idea was to throw light on it, and to throw light on it means that you need to invite people in for a conversation, you know and of course the trans people are going through a lot of pain, and the surgery is a lot of physical pain and the emotional turmoil with their families. But I think there's time for that conversation. The first hello that you're going to start off with can't be a screech or a shout. It has to be inviting for people to come to the room and first hear the whole matter out. And I thought this kind of presentation would really serve the purpose, and the purpose is to have them heard and have them noticed, and to include them into society, to make it inclusive, in
Yeah.
the purest way. And if you can't do that, then the film would be of no use. It would just be another film about the LGBT community that sits somewhere, in the dark corner.
So, Vaani, let me come to you again. For a mainstream actress, breaking into a really big play, again, it's a courageous decision to make. So, I want to know what grabbed you in the script when Abhishek first approached you. What about the character really spoke to you?
The thing is that I genuinely think, I thought it then and I still think it now, I would have been a fool to retrieve from it. It's something so brilliantly written, and the way it's been, the script, the way it flows, it's entertaining for everyone, with such a beautiful message without making it too, kind of hammering it in anyone's head and saying, okay, this is what we want to prove and this is what we are trying to, not making it too preachy. So I feel the great combination and the balance that the script had, it had a beautiful message, a beautiful story, such a lovely character, which is so fleshed out, and which has so much of soul to it. It was never been done before, seen before character. See, I guess we all know that life as a transgender is not so easy. We sitting on the other side of the spectrum, we still get things very easily, and we can take things, we can afford to take things granted for life, in life. But I feel, having said that, haven't walked a mile in their shoes, wouldn't know the kind of battles that they have to fight every single day, the kind of struggles they have to go through. So I think for me to live that and to kind of open my eyes to a very different side of the world, that kind of gave me a lot of, and I was hungry to do something like this, where it had so much meaning and depth and soul to it. So I felt like this is a story that I would want to go and see as an audience, and have some food for thought. Like, there are so many of my friends who watched the film and their point of view has changed, their opinions and the kind of, how we don't even have these conversations sitting at home or with our friends. This came to the table as a conversation, a dialogue began. So I feel that was interesting. Even for me to witness it as an audience was exciting enough. So having to play that part and to be associated to a film like this was just privilege.
I'm going to come back to ask you how it changed your own perspective on transgenders. Was it even anything you were ever thinking about? And also, what was the key to Maanvi's character as an actor? What helped you unlock her? But before that, Abhishek, I wanted to ask you that, you did a lot of research. You said to make this film, you spoke with a lot of transgenders. Simran Sani, who herself came to you, had 2 transgender daughters or who were in the process of transitioning. So what is the dominant ideas you came away with, that helped you shape the character of Maanvi?
I met a lot of trans people, some men also. I had an assistant as well, who was a girl when I was doing Kai Poche, and then she's transitioned and she's a man now. So I met a lot of them. But what I found a common thread in all of them was they had a lot of grace, a lot of dignity, and they have a very evolved they've become very evolved beings. They had a very high spiritual quotient in them, to how they felt about things and how they saw things and how they saw the world around them. They knew how to take care of themselves, but at the same time, they wouldn't. I mean, you know, they would understand the other person's point of view. They would know their boundaries. They would be very generous, but they wouldn't let you cross the line with them. So they knew how to take care of themselves, but at the same time be compassionate towards an unevolved society. Because they've been through so much, and people who have been through a lot understand that. So they could see things from their point of view, and they could see it from your perspective as well. Like a guy like Manu, if he had to come into the room, and a lot of them have dated men like Manu, you know and they would understand it. Like they would have a similar core. Like a lot of them had a similar trajectory in their relationships. There was a similarity in all of them. Like the guy would go crazy about them, they would have a great relationship, and then he would start taking them out, but up to a point, when his family would come into the picture. Some of them had the courage to introduce her, but they would not be able to divulge all the information to them. And then at some point they would just slip out of the room. Many of them have had these clandestine affairs, and in hotel rooms, and they would not bring them out. So they had a lot of similarity, but one thing was common, was dignity. They were very dignified women, and the and I think that's what I wanted to bring for Manvi. Just the way she conducted herself, and she didn't throw her pain in anyone's face. That is her pain, and God has given that path to her to walk, and she's going to walk it in a dignified manner. So that's not going to be the first thing she puts out when you meet her, or look at the shit I've been through. There's another individual there. There's a person that you can meet, a very evolved person that you can meet. And once you get to know her, then you will know what her life is about. And I think that's how I structured the screenplay as well. Like towards the end, you get to know her family and her part of the story. So you always find her alone. She's in Manu's house, she's in Manu's gym, and there are people who are watching her and judging her, and the way she's walking the room, until you see her in her own house, and how her own people are treating, and how she treats them back. So I think that's what I took from all the exchanges I had.
So it's amazing you saying that, Abhishek, because what really spoke to me about the character was that typically on screen, even when transgenders are portrayed, it's always very loud. It's always with their angularity, and somehow the spirit of them is lost. And with Manvi's character, one gets that great sense of tehrav, like she's very self-possessed, and there's vulnerability, but dignity is exactly the word that comes through in that. So
I don't think people know about anyone like Manvi. I think the public at large are unaware. They don't know that people have transitioned in such a beautiful fashion. I mean, they have made that transition. They have come in. Like Manvi has been through the transition since 4 years. She's had a boyfriend after that also. So there are people out there. The audiences and the world at large are unaware. At least in India, people don't know about this. So their portrayal of transgender people has been very pedestrian and abusive. And also, like I met a lot of trans people, but I couldn't bring them forth to talk about the film, because they were so scared about, they didn't know how the film would shape up, and then they didn't know how their own community would look at them, because they are a really small community, and they're very defensive. So to pull them out and tell them that we mean well, has happened only after the film is released, and very few of them have started to come out one by one, and started to embrace the movie and accept it, which has been a huge feat for us.
So I'd like to ask you, that for those who feel that Vaani, who even by conventional terms is a really gorgeous woman, that just playing a very, very beautiful actress as a transgender, that were you in some ways effacing maybe just the physical difficulties of those who transition into another body or another gender? So I'll come back to you, Gattu, to ask you that. But Vaani, first, that question I asked you, that what did you use as a key to get to the essence of being the transgender Maanvi character that you played?
I also spoke to a lot of people. Gattu connected me to some trans girls. I spoke to them. I did go through insane amount of interviews every single day, documentaries, their roundtable conversations, their films, and everything till date. Whatever information one could gather from the cinema, from the media, everything. So I think how everybody has been treated from back in the days, I've seen interviews from the 90s to the 2000s to now, how even an interviewer asks them and kind of treats them, with the amount of respect that they have also kind of, I think eventually now people have become a lot more politer and nicer. But back in the days, I mean, the kind of way one had to address their issues or like come out, in a room full of strangers and talk about their body parts or talk about their psyche. So I think that just the amount of sheer effort that, or the courage one needs to kind of put yourself out there, that is very difficult for somebody who's not had to go through so much in life. So I think the key or basic emotions and the basic structure, the core of every trans person who I have observed, over this period of interactions and watching films and interviews, they all are very strong. Like Gattu said, there's a lot of dignity, there's a lot of grace. There's also a certain sense of a defense mechanism. Like they can also be, that kind of, because I feel like they're always misjudged and there are a lot of things that get misconstrued. So I think somebody who knows how to stand up for themselves. So there's a lot of integrity, solidness within their core. Having said that, there are of course their own crippling insecurities one deals with. We all do. We all have our own insecurities, but the level that they have to deal with is incomparable. So I think it's remarkable to see how every individual trans person has lived through that journey. And yeah, I think it's a very different evolution of the mind and the heart.
For you, what was the scene that was really the most challenging, or where you feel you completely distilled the essence of what you wanted to portray of her?
I think there are so many scenes. I had this self-inflicted pressure. Of course, there's a pressure of, okay, I don't want to disappoint my director. But then there was the self-inflicted pressure that I cannot have a single note go wrong in my performance, because it's a huge responsibility to present an entirely different community, and I just knew that if it would break my heart to see them not connect when I'm as Maanvi coming out, to a guy like Manu. And if you see any false note or any something that you can't connect with, so I felt that scene for me when she comes out to Manu and says, but I have a past and I've lived a certain life, but that's just something I had to deal with. So I think how one had to kind of put those words out there for a cis hetero, this alpha male person who she's apparently in love with, and how the kind of the queasiness and the kind of nerves that it takes to kind of put yourself out there. I think that for me was a very sensitive and a very a tough one. That was a tough scene for me. And also in the mall when they have a fight and when the guy comes charging against, calling her, talking about the deceit and all of that, and how she fights back. But there's still a lot of how do I say, there's a certain tone that was set for Maanvi by Gattu, even by Mukesh Chabra, like when I did my workshops, what her pitch can go to, how angry can she get, and how much is she going to show, and how much is she going to hold back. And so all of those things, I think they were very tough for me to crack.
Yeah. No, it's really, she really, you playing her really brought that idea of vulnerability and strength, and I think, again, like just a touch, Gattu, that was great writing, where the first time Manu makes love to her and she says, thank you, it's such a, and you don't yet, as an audience, you're not yet in on the plot. So it really gives away that back history of pain and of, insecurity and of rejection. Just that word, thank you, is so unusual in that setting that it was really powerful,
I mean, I when we started the film, I knew that there'll be a lot of talk about why we're not casting a trans person to play this role. But the kind of work we put into the script, as writers, we were in the headspace of a trans girl, in 100%. So when we did cast Vaani to play that part, I didn't doubt it for a moment because it's in the writing. The kind of thoughts she's having, the kind of things that she's confronting, and then how she responds to it, the words she uses, like that scene when she does tell him that I'm a trans girl, मैं हमेशा से लड़की थी, अंदर से all those words are as if we have put ourselves into the trans person's headspace. So I never doubted it that why shouldn't Vaani play it,
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of credit to my writing team, Supratik and Tushar, because we really went for it.
So I was asking you, that not just that you used a heterosexual actor, and I understand your reasons for doing that. Like you said, you want to bring more and more people into the conversation, and a very interesting device you've used actually is to tell it from the male perspective or from the cisgender perspective, because then you're actually tackling with all the prejudices of society, but through that you're bringing us to a more empathetic position. So it was a very clever storytelling device. But I was also asking you just about using someone of very like very vivid beauty, physical beauty like Vaani has. Was that a core decision? Is that also metaphoric of, say, you were trying to transmit just the beauty of soul?
When I was interacting with some of the trans women I met, appearance is everything, because it's about the body. They are in the wrong body, and they go through a lot to transform the exterior, so that they feel that they are in the right body, And when I interacted with them, I asked myself this question several times: would I go for it? And to tell you the honest truth, I mean, I'm a married man, so I just can't think of it like that. But in those conversations with them, when I was talking to them, and the way they would speak back to me, I used to tell myself, yeah, boss, I would go for it. If I met a person like this, and if I had an intimate moment, and if my heart was open, if I was looking for companionship, and by chance, finding a partner is that divine moment, when you have to have the vacancy in your head, and that door should be open for you to let someone in. And by chance, if a trans person is sitting opposite me, and that exchange starts, by some of them I was talking to, I said, yeah, I'd go for it. And I would forget. Like if I was having a 1-hour chat to them, after the first 15 minutes, I'm looking for those features that can give away, Acha, ye theek nahi hai, wo theek nahi hai. But after 15 minutes, I swear to you, Shoma, you forget it. Because they have so much depth, and those conversations get so interesting, and they have so much to share. And then all those features and all start to disappear, They do. And आई वाज कन्विंस कि यार मुझे तो नहीं दिख रहा यार एक पॉइंट के बाद, क्योंकि आप किसी का चेहरा 10-15-20 मिनट देखोगे ना, तो फिर वो सब निकल जाता है. I don't know why you start looking at the details, it starts to come, it's just emerges into something else. And if I tell you, if I park a trans thought in your head, there was a point in my life when while making the film, when I'd see everyone's face and I think, oh, she can be trans, or he can be trans, and she can be trans, and everybody can be trans. If you just look at them hard enough, and if you look at my face, you'll say, yeah, kahin na kahin to ye aurat to dikh sakta hai. You start getting into that headspace. So after a point, it didn't matter to me. But what mattered was that she felt beautiful about herself, and that is important, So, and who better than Vaani to do it then, because she looks lovely.
I also feel like, I'm sorry I'm butting in, but also the fact that, there are stunning looking trans girls who I have kind of, during whatever the research that I was doing, I have come across beautiful, stunning looking faces like Valentina Sampaio, who's a Sports Illustrated model. You have a Miss Global, Shruti Sitara, who's so pretty. You have Dr. Trinita. They're so beautiful and they're lovely looking. So I think, like how Gattu was saying, if you remove the word trans, from someone's mindset, is kind of, I think that is your biggest, it's your mind that gets clogged with certain ideas and notions that you're carrying and holding. But I feel there's so many beautiful looking trans girls, and it's just that one is oblivious to that because one is not having these conversations, or willing to even willing to even kind of entertain such thoughts. But
there must have been a time. There must have been a time in the past when people could just not see over the caste system. This conversation that you and me are having today, at some point people must have had with the maybe 50, 70 years ago, Baba Saheb Ambedkar must be having these conversations and explaining to people कि यार कुछ नहीं है, but लोग समझते नहीं है. And actually कुछ भी नहीं है. It's a medical situation. For a cisgender person, it is just not. It is unbelievable कि यार दिमाग और शरीर सिंक में नहीं है. I could never even imagine it. What I'm thinking, I am. But what if you're not? Your mind says that my mind says I'm a woman and I'm in a man's body. It doesn't even cross our mind. So it does happen. People should start accepting that aisa hota hai, and you should give all the credit to doctors today who are able to help you through this journey. Can you imagine? Doctors are like gods. Medicine is like a God's gift, It actually helps you transition. And what an amazing surgery. Kya surgery hai? Matlab, it's incredible what they are able to do for someone in that situation, So I think it's a long journey, but ours is just the first step in that direction.
Why I brought that up was that people may critique it like that you were airbrushing it. But for me, actually, because of the way the script again was written, that her physical beauty actually ended up being a complete reflection of her state of mind, which was like, there's now an outcome of a long journey that's been walked. And she's finally at peace with herself, regardless of how the world sees her. And that for me was the true beauty, and that was kind of physically reflected. But for me, the spirit beauty of a person who's finally at peace, that's what came through, in the film for me.
Also, if you must have heard about how internationally people are having gender reveal parties. You don't take your child's gender for granted. Give it a few years and be sure, let the child tell you whether they're identifying with their birth gender, And also what I have studied and I've learned is that if your child at a younger age wants to go through this, is giving you signs that they are not comfortable in the body they are in, so they should go for counseling earlier. They should try and get that surgery done earlier so that, the entire process is far smoother, because you're suppose you're a boy and you identify with a woman or with a girl, your testosterone have not kicked in are not full blown kicked in yet, So if you go for those for the surgery, or you go for this transition at an early stage, you can have far better results, So it should be encouraged. I mean, obviously through what the guidelines are and all of that, but it's so important. It is very, very important.
In fact, for me, one of the most progressive lines in the film was when Manu has struggled with everything and he comes back to Maanvi and he says that I've now finally understood कि कुछ समझने का है ही नहीं, and I think that for me was like, it's again not that you don't have to be sensitive or know people's journey, but that if the final outcome is genuine, like just acceptance that, one's gender identity and what you were born as or not is of no consequence at all, that love is the thing and it can take any shape. I thought that was really a very powerful line in the film, and it really summed up where we would want society to move towards. That kuch samajhne ka hai hi nahi. It's irrelevant, I
think it's very important for a film like this to have been simple. The simpler it is, the easier it is to understand. If I had to make it what people wanted, I've read a few things. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have all the pain that she has gone through. It's not about that. It's, ये art का क्या फायदा art का जब वो किसी के काम ना आए, I had read somewhere that art doesn't really belong to the people who make it and the people who own it. It belongs to the people who need it. So I felt that this story, the simpler it is told and the easier, the more it should go down. It should just slip in, because this is a very difficult pill, if I had garnished it with all these artistic embellishments of showing you everything that people want, expect, are saying ye nahi dikhaya, ye nahi, ye kabhi ye andar hi nahi jata. It's a very delicate film. It needed to walk a very thin line, for it to be delivered to the other end. And it is as simple as it may look, and how as convenient as it may look, but it's a lot of hard work to make it look that simple.
No, I believe that, because it's definitely something that's communicating. And if it had been, like you said, like bringing in all the darkness, it would have left people again in a ghetto of pain. Typically people don't want to share in other people's pain if there's no linkage, and here you first made it, like you said, like it could be anyone. And so then that pain also is made more mainstream, like people will want to engage with it. It's not ghettoized then, So I thought it was a very, very intelligent film, Gattu. I've been a complete ambassador of it since I saw it. But I wanted to bring up...
Yes, I'd sent you the script and I said, "Waqt nahi nikala Shubha ne." So I said, okay, film dikhaunga isko.
I'm so apologetic, and in some ways I'm not, because I just had this gem of a film come at one, But Gattu, the other thing that I don't know whether it was intended, but I found it very interesting that you also mixed up all the gender stereotypes in other ways as well. You used Maanvi's father as the progressive person, and it's her mother who rejects her child, was that accidental? Was that something you really thought through? Was that something you encountered in your real life stories?
I mean, I'm a Punjabi boy, and Punjabi mothers are obsessed with their sons, and like it's very hard for them to accept. Yaar, mera puttar, they do so much, Punjabis. So I can understand the mother's pain. And she's struggling. It's not like the mother is a bad person. It's so difficult for the mother also to come. So there are all these people, they're all coming to terms. And maybe in Maanvi's household, if the mother had not collapsed and was not able to accept her daughter, maybe the father would have been the other way around. Even if you ask a lot of people who are going through this, families are just don't know how to accept it. So one has to empathize with them also. This shock is for a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's very interesting when you're shaking up society's attitudes. Even in Amir Khan's Satyameva Jayate, it was wonderful to see how many fathers actually had been, you typically think of patriarchy in a certain way, but why I was saying it shakes up that you can find the feminine principle in a man, you can find progressiveness in the most... like in the Haryana father who accepts that his daughters want to be wrestlers, to Dhaliwal, Ghazala Dhaliwal's father who said he went neighborhood to neighborhood telling neighbors that, our son is a daughter now and we're very proud of her. So it's very interesting because in many ways you're shaking up the kind of stereotypes with which society exists, So Maanvi, I'm saying Maanvi, you can see how impactful that's been. So Vaani, let me get back to you to ask you that, in what ways did the making of this film change you and your relationship with yourself, with your art? In what ways do you feel that it's really shifted things for you?
Just the fact that I got this to live this character, Maanvi, I think it was a great eye-opener. Someone like me who might idly in my normal day-to-day life, I wouldn't be Googling and researching and reading and going through so much. But I think there's a whole lot of respect one gains, after, looking at their struggles, because I was literally glued to every interview and every film and every story a trans person had to, come out with and talk about it in public. And I think it just kind of, it gives you a sense of gratitude that, my God, like things that we take for granted and, we feel like it's our right, like this basic things like having this inclusion in our society, we don't thank every day for, thank God we are accepted in the society, or thank God for this and thank God for that. And thank God that my mind and my heart and my soul is in sync. My body is in sync with the way I feel. But just looking at their journey, it's a great eye opener, and you feel so grateful, the things you take for granted can be the biggest battles in someone else's life.
Can you tell me of any one particular story that really stood out for you? Someone you met or some story you researched?
There's this girl who had also come, Caroline Gossi, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, but she was somebody who'd also come in James Bond movie back in the 90s, I think 80s or 90s. And she's somebody who got married, and then the man who married her divorced her instantly right after they came back from their honeymoon, because the parents weren't acknowledging their marriage, and how like she was, and then she found another man in her life. But throughout like her modeling career, she was a supermodel, and then she married a very, very well settled, very the love of her life, and then how she struggled, and so everything was fine. I think the fact that the day that media started hunting her, because they heard, like, they got few clues here and there that she may not be a cis girl, her career kind of took a back seat. So how her life kind of just changed overnight. Everything flipped for her, and just how she kind of came to terms and kind of embraced it and accepted it and said, you know what, I'm not going to let these people put me in depression and, take away everything that I've earned. And how she stood up for herself. She went and she faced everybody, faced everyone in the media, and accepted that, yes, I had a past, and this is who I am, and this is why I got my work, because I am a desirable woman. And how people were still brutal and harsh, even you could sense it in the tone of the interviewers. So I think, but the dignity and sheer grace she had, I think that was just remarkable.
So, I'm going to wind up, because Abhishek, you said you're not feeling very well, but just a couple more questions. There's so much talk now about feminism, about political correctness. What does feminism mean to you, and how do you think it's different from a previous generation?
It's equality, yeah. I know now people kind of strangely want to disassociate themselves with the word, because I think they feel like it's been overused and abused and kind of, taken out of context many a times. But for me, it's all about equality. It's literally inclusion of everything. For me, my stand is, when I do a film like Chandigarh Kare Aashiqui, I pretty much put my stand across there, that this is what I believe in, which is feminism.
You took a three-year break from acting. Were you reorienting your head? Were you reorienting the choices you're going to make? What did that 3-year break speak of?
I didn't take a break. It just so happened that the kind of films I wanted didn't come to me. So it was a by default break. It's not something I thought of and I said, okay, I'm going to take a sabbatical and not work and, work on myself as an actor. It's just that, I had two choices. I either go with the kind of films that are coming to me, which are not giving me that contentment, and, which will make me complacent as an actor. And then I just, do a couple of films, be visible out there, make my money and bounce from the industry. Or I wait patiently and sit for filmmakers like Gattu to approach me someday and just do quality work and kind of, and just take that leap of faith, because I think I do have that self-belief that, the thing is, I'm very certain of what I don't want in life. So that makes my life easy to then kind of.
So spell that out. What is it that you don't want in life?
Just the things that, like the kind of films I don't see myself do, and the kind of projects I don't see myself associated to, and the kind of life I don't want to live. I want to be able to truly contribute to cinema in some way. When I'm 80 years old, I want to look back at my films and feel proud. I want to feel that, okay, I contribute, even if it's in the tiniest way possible. I feel proud of my work. I feel proud of the person I am. And, there are certain either I'm completely twisted or I just have incredible self-belief.
But Shoma, I'll tell you something. I've worked with many different kinds of actors, but some actors work very hard, and sometimes the effort shows, and sometimes, but she is really gifted. She just has, as if she's born with the craft. She doesn't have a large body of work, where she's done so many scenes like these. But she's such a good actor.
Yeah. You made my 17-year-old son cry, which I'm going to say on record, because he's actually
happy to it. Crying made me very happy. And I'm not a sadist.
Yeah, no, but I think that really says a lot about the films that, you make a 17-year-old boy cry and he's willing to speak of it to his friends and say, go watch it because it made me cry,
I think that's our victory, Gattu.
So, Abhishek, just last question, that what is the kind of films that, really went into shaping you? You come, from a filmmaking family, but you're carving a very distinctive path for yourself. So what was the things that shaped you? Is there any sort of really gut to defining incident in your life?
I really love watching Raj Kapoor movies. Like films like Ram Teri Ganga Maili. I mean, all those movies he made, they were just phenomenal films. And the music that they had. Then I watched a lot of Steven Spielberg. And then I went crazy on Clint Eastwood's movies. I think Clint Eastwood is a phenomenal filmmaker. He keeps it really short, keeps it tight, and he just moves on. I mean, he's 80 plus and he's making a movie every year. And every story that he tells is so relevant. And there's a narrative style, that is just his. These are some great filmmakers, and I don't know how they've influenced me, but I've really relished their work and they've moved me.
Vaani, I'll end with asking you that, there was a huge, this insider-outsider debate last year about filmmaking in Bollywood. You're the outsider. You've come from, not a filmmaking family. So one, how easy was it to break into the industry? And secondly, what is the kind of work, filmmakers, stories that have impacted you and made you want to become an actor?
I don't know if I've still broken into the industry. I'm broken into Yasha.
You're working with Gattu. That means you've broken in.
Gattu, yes. But I think it's every film kind of, you're like, okay, what next now? What kind of work is going to come to me? There are very few people who I meet who know of me or who have seen my work. And yeah, I still feel very lost and clueless. There are only very few people who I've interacted within the industry, even till now, like after so many years. And I don't know if the feeling's ever going to sink in that, okay, I am part of the industry and now I have become an insider. I don't know if I'll ever become an insider, but I'm happy working as an outsider, getting to do what I love. And that's enough for me. As long as I keep getting good work, I can go back home, disconnect and be in my own little space on my couch with my cats. I'm fine.
Have you seen this movie called Don't Look Up?
Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
Oh, what a movie, yeah.
I saw it last night. What a cool film.
It's so sharp and just, I loved it.
Brilliant.
I also loved it.
Really brilliant. So, Gattu, I want to end with you. Just, did you think of something which will...
What is my defining moment that made me a filmmaker?
Yeah, or you as you are today?
I actually, I don't know, Shoma.
if one needed a lever, if someone was playing Gattu and they had to find a lever to your character, what would that lever be?
When I came into I was born in the business, actually, on the peripheries of the business. My mother is sister to one of the biggest superstars of his time. So when I was growing up, I was like, the business is really crazy that way. I just felt that I was going to be a hero, and I'm going to be a film actor and everything would be so nice and rosy. And everybody around me made it look like that as well, because those were the days. And then I did get a break, but things just went off. And then I saw a totally different side of the industry, and the world just flipped in my head. And my failures as an actor, as a wannabe star, that really hit me. And at that point, I remember either I was, I don't know many people of my generation who didn't do well as actors and who pulled it off, who came out of it and directed films or did something in the film business in a successful way. It's very tough because in those days, if you failed as an actor, you failed as a human being. Even if I went ahead and did some other business, they would say, "Hey, wo to hero hai yaar, wo hero ja raha hai yaar." And that would happen to me a lot. And I stopped acting. I didn't do any TV at that time. I just couldn't get out of my house, and that is something that's really stayed with me. So I don't know how that affects my work. But that really shook me up. And I don't know how I managed to get out of it. I think it's my mother's prayers. And like there were days when I would pray for hours because I didn't know how to get out of my room. And I didn't have any hometown to go to. And I didn't have any friends to go to who were not non-filmy. Because I knew everybody in the industry. So if I step out of my bedroom, I was in the film industry and I had no work. And it was just very, very dark. I think somewhere that is who I am.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Abhishek. I just want to end with bringing us back to your film. I hope just tons and tons of people see it. And is it going to move to an OTT at any point after the
Netflix early next month.
Oh, nice. So those who are still too scared to go to the theaters can see it there. So I just want to end with, I asked Vaani already, but for you and all the people that you met, if we were to speak of a real life transgender person that really impacted you, can you speak of anyone?
I think you're asking me?
Yeah.
So you should meet this girl, Seher. She is Simran's daughter. I mean, she's got two, Seher and Reza. But she's such a badmash. She is such a top class badmash. Someday I should introduce you to her. In fact, Arjun Sani met her, he couldn't get over it. She's so naughty and she's so spirited. I mean, trans be damned. You should just hear her take on life and the kind of boys she meets and the fun she's having in life.
And how old is
she? Last time I spoke to her, she was complaining, when am I going to find a guy like Manu? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm also looking for one.
How old is she?
She's early 20s or late teens.
Right.
Yeah.
So on that note, congratulations again for pulling off such a spirited, sensitive, wonderful film about a topic that people normally don't even engage with. And I hope, like you said, it's only the start of the conversation and many more facets of this experience of others will be put on cinema and make us all more empathetic. Thank you so much, both of you, for making time.
Thank you so much.
As usual, wonderful talking to you, Shobha.
Thank you.